It's another political show, and today we're going to be discussing the cancelled votes in Virginia and the political ramifications and implications, and all about gerrymandering and political manipulations in the US. We meet to discuss this issue is Mustafa. My name is Afolabi.
Okay, so it's breaking, but everybody knows the news. Virginia went and they voted to change districts to help the Democrats win, basically. They were going to get an extra 6 votes based on this. Now they're losing those 6 votes, and the House can come into play in the big elections that the Republicans were supposed to lose by a landslide, especially since Trump is fucking up the economy, fucking up with this world war and everything. So this is not just Virginia. Black states all over the country, their districts are being rearranged so that black votes are lost, so that the Republicans can win those states too. So what Trump is looking for is a way to fuck up the economy, to put the world on the brink of war, to say, he said it out of his mouth, child care is not important, but stopping Iran from supposedly having a nuclear weapon is not important, then has the nerve to ask for 1.5 trillion for war. So he knows that by messing up the everything, he's going to lose the House. The Republicans are going to lose it by a landslide. So what he basically did today was through, I don't know how they did it, but the Virginia courts struck down the vote that's going to do the redistricting in Virginia and give more people in the House for the Republicans, because this is going to be important. Because if the Democrats don't have a majority, the Republicans are going to be able to continue with their war, continue with cutting spending, continue with all of these policies that are hurting the American economy. All of this on top of the fact that in Tennessee just now, the state has been absolutely obliterated so that the Republicans can win in areas that usually were black caucuses. But we're not here today to complain about whether this is right or wrong. What we're here today to complain about is the Republicans aren't at war with the Democrats. They're at war with democracy. I'd even go further, not today. The Democrats are also at war with democracy. Americans are at war with democracy. Let's take a look at what's going on. Donald Trump on January 6th sort of influenced an insurrection, which was basically a coup. Everybody that was involved in that insurrection got pardoned for breaking into, I think it was Senate or Congress, while they were counting the votes. And the senators and congressmen, women and men, had to hide themselves. Everybody was pardoned. That looks like you're undermining democracy when you pardon people who use the threat of violence against elected politicians. Let's go back even further to the 1990s, where the elections were going on for Gore versus Bush, and the Supreme Court said stop counting the votes in a state where Gore would have won and would have won the elections. Then they changed the Voting District Act for blacks, saying it's not fair because it was based on race. I'm not arguing about that. I'm not saying that we should have districts based on race, but the Republicans passed they passed bills to gerrymander in districts to their favor, saying you can change a district based on political party. You can favor political parties, but you can't favor race. I follow. But do you see the madness? The Republicans are saying we can make changes to favor political parties, but not race. So what I'm saying is that you see a pattern here where the Republicans are getting what they want, and they're going to win elections through basically rigging. And the Democrats are sitting down and doing nothing. That's why I say the Democrats are at war with democracy in America also. But what's more important is that the American people are sitting down and doing nothing. Afalabi, if elections like this were rigged in Nigeria, where you come from, which is such a bastion of non-corruption and everything, by the way, story, if that happened in Nigeria, tell me what the result would be on the streets within minutes.
Of course, I mean, it will be mayhem everywhere. Bonfire,
Rioting.
tire everywhere, people maiming people, crashing tires into vehicles and stuff. Everything would have gone berserk, basically.
So what I want to say is that Americans, citizens, are the ones who really are at war with democracy, because you continue to watch Trump stop spending money, take America to a war that 60% of Americans are against. Not just him. Biden sent us to a war with Ukraine with money. Um, the Democrats and the Republicans passed the Iraq war based on false activities. So what I'm saying is that the American civilians sit down and watch all of this, and all they could do is complain and say it's not fair. I'm not saying Americans should become violent. Here's what I'm saying. Look at Martin Luther King. Look at the 1970s. You protest, but protest isn't enough. You have to go on national strike. For example, the price of gas is going up for a war that every American knows that this war is bullshit, rather than have the whole country come together and say, okay, we're going on strike. We're not going to do anything until this war ends. The way we did with the radical protest in the 70s, we just sit down and say this is bad and let it keep on going. How far do you want to keep on going to one day where they tell you if you don't pay your credit card bills, you're going to jail? So what I'm saying is that Americans keep on giving up too much freedom. It started with the votes with what's his name George Bush. George Bush used the Supreme Court to stop the voting and get into office and started an Iraq war that cost trillions of dollars. Trump is back in office, starting a war without approval of Congress and Senate. So my question is, how long are we going to continue sitting down and letting things happen? This is not about Republicans versus Democrats. This is about politicians rigging the system and going against the votes. Virginia voted. They voted to say they wanted to redistrict themselves. And a court judge overruled their votes. But when the Republicans did it in Texas, nobody did anything. So my point of view is that Republicans are at war with democracy, but more important, Democrats are too, because they're not fighting the Republicans and because they go along with these wars that are draining our country. And at this moment, I'm going to stop. The reason Trump needs to have control of Congress and Senate or have a stalemate is so that he can continue with the war and so that he can continue with his ICE detentions. We're not going to talk about it today, Afolabi, but the money shows that most of the money that went to helping the Republicans win these redistrictings come from people who are funding the Iran war and from the prisons and the detainment center lobbyists who fund the ICE. So what I'm trying to say is that this redistricting thing, the reason the Republicans are winning is because the war lobby and the anti-immigration lobby, which is making money by putting these people in detention, is what causes. How long is America going to sit down and let lobbyists determine what happens in our country? Because that's why this is happening. I'm not. This is not a show where we're trying to attack the Republicans. This is a show where we're trying to attack lobbyism and the fact that citizens sit down and think that because they vote, they've done their duty in America. Fuck that. They haven't. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
And that's a brilliant perspective to it because I actually thought about it now that if the Democrats and the black minority sit down, fold their hands, and they're basically doing nothing, I mean, they're showing some kind of apathetic behavior. They're just enemies of democracy like the Republicans. Because, I mean, let's take Tennessee, for instance. Okay, they say Virginia is more of legal technicality. But if you look at what happened in Tennessee, I mean, they basically blocked a Democratic map. They faced lawsuits over Republican maps, and they intentionally silenced black voters in Memphis, I think it was. So
Yeah.
if a state has a large minority neighborhood that usually votes for one party, now politicians can dilute that power by splitting the neighborhood into chunks or pieces. Now, the math is simple. By drawing lines that divide these minority voters in several surrounding districts, I think what happens is that mostly the district filled with voters from opposing party, their voting party is completely erased and cleaned off. Now, the surrounding districts stay safely in the majority party control, but the
Yeah.
minority voters lose their ability to elect a representative of their choice. And that is this math of gerrymandering. So, and the Democrats and the black minorities sit down, fold their hands. They're just enemies of democracy. And America's democracy is on the precipice and is facing a lot of strain. But the people that are supposed to stand up and talk about it are just enemies of democracy as well. Because give or take, these are institutional things that are being, that should be challenged. But the judges are just as culpable because they're just trying to interpret what is already.
Follow me. You can bet your money
Yeah,
that the judges are political appointees
of course they
who have
are.
been paid off, who've been
Absolutely.
paid off.
Of course, they're in bed with the lawmakers, basically.
And I'll say
The
something.
judges are
It's
in
not
bed
so
with
much,
the lawmakers.
you know, and here's why I say Americans are enemies of democracy. It's not enough to stand up and say this is wrong. What you have to do is coalesce together, blacks, racists, rednecks, Democrats, and say, hey, wait a minute. We're not going to be spending 1.5 trillion on war, and we don't have schools. We're not going to let politicians vote for who gave them money, even though they go against what we voted them in for. And the only way you can do that is through something that hurts them. You standing there with placards doesn't hurt them. You saying, you guys are stupider than I am. I'm such an intelligent independent, and you guys are so evil. They're not evil. They're making money and doing things. The only way it goes is for people to coalesce. And I've said it before, the only thing that hurts is economic disruption where the rich hurt. I thought if Americans went on strike, let's say they said, oh, gas prices are going up because of this stupid war. If every American said for 2 weeks, nobody's going to drive to work, within 6 days, the government will retreat from that war in Iran because it would hurt the corporate factors. And a lot of people say, "Well, you're a dreamer, you can't do it." They do it in other countries. In Nigeria, people have called for strikes before in Nigeria, right? Remember,
Sure,
nobody
sure,
walked out on the street.
sure, sure.
Nobody did it. They do it in France. They do it in Spain. They don't do it in America. And I'll tell you why. Americans are idiots. Finish. It's just that simple. They're idiots. They're idiots. Oh, I don't like you because you're black. Oh, I don't like you because you're gay. Oh, I don't like you because you don't want kids to be able to castrate themselves when they're 13 years old. They find different reasons to not work together. You get my point?
Yeah.
Well, here's a message for all of you. Fucking go to hell. This country's going to go down and you're going to sink, and I don't care. Sorry, you'll be the voice of reason. I follow me. Any last insights, analytical insights from what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, basically, to me, this is a democratic decline, basically. I mean, if you look at some of these judges, they have been there forever, and most of them are compromised. You know,
Yeah.
courts are increasingly using legal technicalities to throw out results of public referendums, which is not good. But this is why critics say that the power to decide elections is in the hands of the unelected judges rather than the electorate themselves. The power should be with the electorate,
Yeah,
basically.
well, here's what I would even argue. The power should actually be with the citizens. Because in countries like Sweden and Spain, once the judges mess up, or the government mess up, or the military mess up, the citizens mess up by putting everything to a halt. And when you put everything into a halt, the ruling class um, panic because they need the country to be functioning for them to make money and survive. Last thing I'm going to say, Americans, you're at war with democracy. You're letting Netanyahu determine every aspect of your government functioning. Because have no doubt about it, this gerrymandering is so that Trump and his warmongers and Israel can continue their war. Because they know that if the Democrats had taken over, they might. And I don't think they would have, but the Democrats might have said, oh, the economy's bad, so we have to end these wars or how the economy. I actually don't think they would, but let's just speak hypothetically. They would. So Americans, wake up, lobbying, not just APAC, lobbying, the ability for money to determine what the politicians do rather than the citizens shows that America is not a democratic party. I feel like in 30 seconds, give us your thoughts, then take us out.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that supporters of this system, basically, I mean, you are looking at a system that is becoming more shaped by courts, district maps, and legal technicalities instead
And
of
don't forget, and money.
and money instead of voter representation, and like you rightly mentioned, citizens. Now, people that support the system are saying it's constitutional, but I am a critic of that. I feel the democracy is declining because of this
Yeah.
kind of manipulation. That's just
And I'll agree with you, it is constitutional because it's according to the American Constitution. But the problem is that the American Constitutional is irrational.
is
You get
irrational.
my point?
Is
Yeah.
irrational.
Check it out, Bobby. Nice one. This was a breaking news. You heard it hours after it ended. We're gonna
Yeah,
post it in
yeah.
2 minutes.
In fact,
Like, share,
when I was
subscribe.
even reading about it, I discovered that, I mean, the one that happened in Tennessee was even a stronger case of
Oh yeah,
gerrymandering
yeah, yeah.
than the
And
Virginia
we're gonna
one.
continue because this is too much stuff to unpack today.
Today. Sure.
Tomorrow we're gonna finally follow the money trail and show you how the prison industry, which is behind ICE, because they want to have they're making money off of jailing illegal immigrants and deporting them, and also the war industry is directly influencing these gerrymandering results. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Take us out of Falabi.
Okay, it's been another brilliant political show. We've been discussing the cancellation of votes in Virginia. And from Mustafa and myself, we'll be back again with another interesting political story. Bye for now.
Falabi, nice word, and it was raw, unscripted. You get my
Yeah,
point.
sure.